On this channel, I'm all about growing your wealth through career advancement, investments, and sometimes good old-fashioned saving money. And you may have seen a number of ads here on YouTube about a wireless mobile service provider called Mint Mobile. They've actually been around for a good handful of years, but you might remember them because the ads themselves are quite funny and they feature the owner of the company. You may know him. He is a A-list Hollywood actor by the name of Ryan Reynolds. But you also might remember what it is that they have to offer, which are insanely good wireless phone plans starting at $15 a month. Far and away a much better price than your Verizon's, AT&T's, and T-Mobile's. In fact, in making my switch from Verizon, I save about $600 a year. And that's just on one line. And that's with almost no effort at all. But what's the catch? Is it too good to be true? Is it worth all the money that you'll be saving? In this video, I'll give you my review of Mint Mobile after my 3 months of use, and some points you might want to consider if you are thinking about making that switch. So let's talk about it now. For a brief bit of context on this company, Mint Mobile is considered a mobile virtual network operator, which means that they provide customers with a mobile network service using another company's network infrastructure. In this case, Mint Mobile is actually using T-Mobile's network. And because they don't have all the costs associated with the infrastructure, the maintenance, they don't have physical locations, they don't have stores, and they don't have salespeople, they're able to pass a lot of that savings on to the customer in the form of very well-priced phone plans. Which, speaking of plans, these are them. And as of the making of this video, they're running a really nice offer where all the plans are $15 a month for 3 months for new customers. Now, depending on when exactly it is you're watching this video, they may or may not be running this promotion. But nonetheless, you can visit the site and view all the plans by using the link that I provided down in the description below. Now, what you see here is a basic tiering structure where the more data you want to use on the network, the more you pay. Now, this isn't quite the whole story when it comes to pricing, so here's the catch when it comes to how this is advertised. The note to make here is that Mint Mobile actually only offers prepaid plans, whereby the more months you pay for upfront, the greater the discount, i.e., the lower the price per month. This $15 a month rate that you normally see any other time and after you finish up that promotional period is if you select a 12-month period, and you can see that here. There are also options for 6 and 3 months, of course, at a higher cost, so something to be aware of. And if you don't want to make the commitment, of course, to a whole year, you do have those options just at a higher cost. As far as service coverage goes, like I mentioned earlier, it uses the T-Mobile network, which has grown substantially over the last few years. Now, part of it is them just building out more infrastructure and more towers. The other part of it is also that they purchased Sprint a handful of years back. And from that, they took on that infrastructure as well. So the coverage is quite competitive, and you can see it here on this map that they provide. So depending on where you live, you may want to take a little bit closer of a look at this. If you're in a major city, or I mean, pretty much anywhere, you're gonna get coverage unless you're in the middle of nowhere. And there are a handful of spots like that. But again, that's gonna be a small subset of people. So this is all what Mint Mobile is using. But there is a caveat when it comes to piggybacking off of another provider's network. So here's the catch. While you can get 4G and 5G service pretty much any time that you want and wherever you want, the overwhelming majority of the time, this is going to be a non-issue. But if you happen to be in a very crowded area, say a concert or a sporting event, and there are a lot of people trying to access the same network at around the same time, the priority is going to go to T-Mobile customers first. So what does that mean for you as a prospective Mint Mobile customer? Well, it generally doesn't mean that you're just gonna get no service whatsoever. Just that there's there's a possibility that your internet speed may be a little bit slower. The question really is, how often are we in those situations, and by how much does the internet speed actually slow down? Might be almost no effect. It might not even be discernible at all. Or maybe you do realize it's a little bit slower than usual, but it's really not that big of a deal in any way, shape, or form. And I would say that's something that's fairly difficult to quantify across the entire user base of Mint Mobile customers, because the context, the circumstances are all generally going to be fairly unique. That's going to determine if you have a small slowdown in speed, no slowdown in speed, or maybe a substantial slowdown in speed. It's kind of hard to tell, and it really depends on the situation, which, again, presumably, you don't find yourself in those situations very often at all. But it is a consideration I wanted to make you aware of, because maybe you do find yourself in crowded places a lot. So there may be a little bit of risk there. Now, with all that said, let me share briefly my own experience. I had been a Verizon customer for maybe 6 or 7 years. Actually, it had fantastic service, really great coverage, didn't have any issues really whatsoever. In fact, it was better than T-Mobile, which is who I had prior to Verizon. And again, that was a number of years back at this point. Quite a bit has changed since then. So I switched to Verizon and had a really good experience, but I was paying quite a bit more for it. And that's even after some of the discounts that I get through my employer. Now, at some point earlier this year, I had been reviewing my expenses, as one does, thought about where I could cut back that wouldn't really involve a whole lot of effort. I then remembered all the really cool and funny Ryan Reynolds Mint Mobile ads. Now, I always pegged myself to be above advertisements. You can't sway me, but this is Ryan Reynolds we're talking about. And he's doing a pretty darn good job of marketing. So I go to the website, I check out Mint Mobile, I check out all the plans, all the pricing. I do some research about other people's experiences, but then I did some quick napkin math, and then I realized that for what I would get for 1 month of Verizon service, I could get about 3 to 4 months of Mint Mobile. The economics of this seemed incredibly compelling, so I had to at least give it a chance. So I actually had the promotional offer, so I figured, okay, 3 months, I'll give this a shot. At any rate, I'm gonna be saving a good amount of money even if I were to switch back to Verizon. Ordering process was super simple. The setup itself was also quick and simple. Everything's explained on the Mint Mobile website, so it's basically step by step, not all too complicated. Transferring everything over from my previous service to the new service was also fairly simple. So not a lot of issue. Did all that, and then I was off to the races. Fast forward 3 months, and here we are. And it is now time to renew. Now, similar to how you, the viewer of this video, would click the like button at the bottom of this video to show your approval of the content that I'm putting out, I clicked the renew button for Mint Mobile to show my approval of their service. And I renewed for the full year, the full 12 months, so I can get that $15 a month rate, and that gives me about 4 gigs of data per month. And in my 3 months that I've had the service, everything's been absolutely awesome from setup to usage. I haven't had any issues. And the plan is actually perfect for me. I don't use a ton of data. Most of the time I'm near Wi-Fi, so I'm just using Wi-Fi. But the times I use data, which is also fairly often, it's about obviously every day, I had great service every single time that I used it. It did what I needed it to do, when I needed it, and where I needed it. And I didn't encounter any kind of service coverage gaps, apart from there was some stretch of Highway 1 in California when I went to go travel there that I didn't have service. But I would probably guess that's a tough spot to be in. It was in a stretch that was very far from civilization, well, not terribly far from civilization, but far enough, and it's surrounded by trees. So there's going to be a lot of interference there. But outside of that, I didn't experience any kind of slowdown, or at least nothing that was noticeable to me, even when I was in maybe crowded spaces. So for what I use my phone for, which is usually checking email for navigation, online media of some sort, fairly, I would say, typical use of most people. I had nothing but a positive experience. And the best part of it is I had a great experience paying just a quarter of the cost that I had been paying previously. So I'd highly recommend giving this a look to see exactly how much money you could potentially save by making the switch. Then give it a try. You can commit to maybe the 3 months to see if you have a good experience yourself. See if it does everything that you need it to do to your satisfaction, as had been the case for me. And if it does, great. You can look into renewing when the renewal comes up. And if it doesn't, well, that's a bummer. But one is you didn't spend a ton of money on Mint Mobile, and then two, you can of course just switch back to your previous service provider or switch to a new one. Easy as that, no harm, no foul, very low risk for you. But this is a great and easy way to put a few $100s extra in your pocket without having to do really a ton of work. And for me, that was about $600 per year, which if you think about it a little bit differently from an investment standpoint, that's about the equivalent of, say, putting $7,500 in an index fund in the stock market that returns on average 8% a year. When you think of it like that, not a bad investment. And folks, by the way, if you're thinking in terms of investments, well, guess what? I've got videos for you that you can check out right here.